component in our program as written in the NIH grant application. You already have gone through some city training. You already have gone through the lecture of Jennifer Baker yesterday, but still I would like to give you just an overview on the responsible conduct of research and research misconduct. Feel free to interrupt and ask me any question, either by raising your hand or writing the comment below in there, or you can contact me later. Can you see the big slide, or are you seeing the small screen? What do you see on your screen? Do you see the full presentation screen?
You see both.
No, we see, yeah, small presenter mode.
Small, not the big one. Okay, I don't know why why this showing the swap display. Okay. Now you see the big one? All right, great. Okay, so let's get going. As you all know, I'm D.K. Agrawal, and I am the one who is directing this program in the NIH-NIAID. The objective, just to refresh your memory, all of you have already gone through all these, but just to refresh your memory, that the objectives of the responsible conduct of research is to promote scientific reasoning, ethics, collaboration, and thus to improve the confidence in scientific knowledge. And this has many components. As shown in this cartoon here, that this is the components which include in the responsible conduct research include misconduct, data management, and then many different aspects, which we will be talking in the following slides. All right. So these are the key features of responsible conduct of research. Formal training. Already you have done city training, and I'm sure Jennifer Baker might have gone through this yesterday, but also this course is a part of the formal training of responsible conduct of research. Informal training is the one which you will be learning throughout your research career. You will be learning that while you are in the lab. You will be learning that while you are interacting with your mentor. You'll be learning that while you are interacting with your colleagues in the lab all the time. Those sort of things are the informal training. Then we'll be talking about general misconduct and questionable research practices, biosafety, chemical safety labels and requirements. There will be a separate lecture by Dr. Sanchez, who is the chair of our biosafety committee here at Western U. And I believe that lecture is scheduled very soon. Dr. Redwan will be talking to you on the human research protection, because he's a member of the IRB committee at Western U, so he knows all the ins and outs of the human research protection. Animal welfare, Jennifer Baker might have mentioned yesterday. However, Dr. Finos Thankam, who is a member of the ICAC committee at Western U, will go over a lecture sometime soon in next 2 or 3 weeks. I will be mentioning something on the data management in the following slides. I will be talking about the responsible authorship and publication. I'll be talking about the mentor-trainee responsibilities and relationships. And I'll be talking about the collaborative science. And I will also talk on the conflict of interest in research. So conflict of interest, that's the first topic, which is at most important. And where does the conflict occurs? Conflict occurs that when you have several roles, not only as a researcher, but you may have a role in some other capacity, which may induce a conflict, not only in the conduct of research, but also in the various aspects of data collection, data interpretation, and so on. And this could be because that somebody might get a personal benefit in there. And then it could be because that conflict of interest due to the organization. Conflict of interest could be illegal. It could be unethical. And it may come up with the results which may not be correct, and the data interpretation and decision on your findings. So these are the various aspects of the conflict of interest. And we will go more in details in the following slides. And indeed, the conflict of interest occurs when a researcher's personal, professional, or financial interest could compromise their objectivity, integrity, or conducting or reporting research. And these conflicts can arise from various sources, such as a financial relationships with companies, personal relationship with collaborators, or other interests that might influence the research design, conduct, or interpretation. It could be perceived. It may not be real, but it could be perceived, or there could be a potential conflict of interest, or there could be an actual conflict of interest. In either case, it is the university's responsibility where you conduct the research to make sure that conflict of interest is not there in any performed research. And accordingly, all of us have to file a paperwork in advance before starting any project regarding our conflict of interest, that what affiliations we have, with which companies we are working with, and so on and so forth. So there could be a financial interest where the researchers may have a financial ties to companies or organizations involved in their research, which could potentially influence their findings or reporting. All of you might be aware of the facts that in the past, many pharmaceutical companies used to support the research. And then there was not very much regulations at the time in terms of the conflict of interest, whereby later on it was found that some data was influenced by the pharmaceutical companies or other organizations, and they may not be valid. For that reason, it is utmost important for all of us to declare any financial ties to companies or organizations in advance. And we have to submit those papers in advance, sign it before we start any project, especially the project which is funded by federal government such as NIH. Conflict of interest could be the personal relationships, that is the close relationship with collaborators or individuals involved in the research that could lead to bias or preferential treatments. Other conflict of interest could include where the researchers may have a personal values, beliefs, or political instances that could affect the direction or interpretation of the research findings. Also, the researchers may have the intellectual property rights related to their research, potentially influencing their choice of research topics or findings. And researchers may have time constraints or competing obligations that could compromise the quality of research. So why are conflict of interest a concern? It's concerned because it can lead to biased research findings or interpretations, undermining the integrity of the scientific process. Also, it can damage the confidence of public in research findings and the scientific community as a whole. Researchers with conflict of interest may inadvertently harm participants or fail to fully protect their rights. And also, it can lead to researchers selectively highlighting or ignoring evidence that does not align with their interest. It has been found in many research cases whereby researchers have some negative findings, but they never report. They only report what is supporting their hypothesis and which is not acceptable. There are 4 Ds in relation to the conflict of interest: disclosure, openly sharing any potential conflicts with relevant parties. And also, another aspect is the delegation, which can help by assigning decision-making to an impartial party. Indeed, in many cases, there is always a committee, oversight committee, which will look at the findings, especially in any clinical trials. NIH requires and other companies requires to have an oversight committee to go over that what type of subjects you recruited, how you recruited, and then how you collected the data and how you analyze the data. So this has to be, and then how did you make the decision? regarding certain aspects of the study. Distraction, focusing on priorities to minimize the impact of conflict of interest. Disqualification, it ensures that individuals with conflicts are kept from specific decisions. So effective strategies could include streamlining workflows, accurate disclosures, and maintaining transparency to ultimately enhance trust and efficiency. So how could it be managed? As I said earlier, the disclosure should disclose any potential conflict of interest to their institutions, funding agencies, and journals. In all publications, we have to disclose our conflict of interest. In all our presentation in any national or international meeting, we have to disclose our conflict of interest. In any application to NIH and other agencies, when we submit, we have to disclose our conflict of interest. And as I said earlier, that we have to submit a paper to our institution here at Western U before we start upon any new project. Independent oversight. Researchers with conflict of interest should seek advice from independent experts or advisors to ensure their research remains objective. Separation of roles. Different team members should be assigned to specific tasks to minimize the influence of individual biases. And in this way, really, if we can assign the various components of each study to different people, and sometimes we also analyze the slides and the data by 2 or 3 different observers and look at the inter-observer variation for that reason. Transparency. Researchers should be transparent about their financial interests, affiliations, and any other potential conflicts of interest. And then in this regard, we have various committees such as IRB for the human research and other ethics committees such as IACUC for animal or other type of ethics committee. They will review the research proposal to ensure that conflicts of interest are managed appropriately. Let's talk about any question on conflict of interest. Let's talk about collaboration, authorship, and publication. In any research, collaboration is extremely important because it brings the expertise from multiple disciplines. Nowadays, to answer a clinical question in an effective manner, it's utmost important to bring expertise from various disciplines and then perform your experiments and then come up with the solution. And that has been a recent practice. That is why collaboration between various expertise is extremely important. But that brings the question about the authorship. How will you decide the authorship and in any published articles and any other type of data? So responsible authorship and publications, it is crucial for maintaining research integrity and ensuring the accuracy and trustworthiness of published work. This involves adhering to ethical guidelines, accurately representing contributions, and avoiding practices like plagiarism or duplicate publication. Having a name in any publication is a big responsibility. If you want to include somebody as a second author, a third author, or fourth author in your article, that person has to accept the responsibility. If anything goes wrong, each of the authors will be responsible to answer those questions. So it is at most important that every author in any published article should be responsible for the findings reported in that article. Accordingly, you should also be aware of the fact that you should decide the authorship, the primary author, secondary author, tertiary author, depending upon the contribution of each author in an effective manner. Not just the little bit suggestions here and there. Actual scientific contribution must be there to secure the authorship in any published articles. So defining authorship. Authorship should be based on substantial contributions to the conception, design, data acquisition, analysis, or interpretation of the research. Authors are also responsible for drafting, or critically revising the work and giving final approval for publication. Before we submit any article, we make a statement that all authors have read the article and consented to submit for publication in this journal. So this is required before we submit to any very good journal for publication of our articles. Acknowledge all contributors, individuals who have made significant contributions but do not meet the criteria for authorship. You can acknowledge them in the publication in the end. For example, as I mentioned, that if they have not done any effective scientific contribution, but they have helped you how to learn the technique or provide you some instrument or other type of assistance during the course of your study, please acknowledge that, not by adding their name as a co-author, but acknowledgement in the end of your article. Avoid the ghost authorship and gift authorship. Ghost authorship means that unacknowledged contributors, and the gift authorship meant you are giving authorship without a sufficient contribution should be avoided. This is important because having a name in any published article is a responsibility. So each of the authors responsible for the findings. If anything goes wrong, each of the authors will be called upon to answer those questions. Transparency and accuracy. Authors should be transparent about their roles and contributions, ensuring that the publication accurately reflects the work and findings. In many journals, almost every journal nowadays, they require to say what exactly each author did in this published article, in this article. So we have to specify whether they came up with the actual concept of the study, they came up with the design of the study, did they perform any experiments, did they draw any figures, did they come up with the discussion during the analysis and the conclusion of the findings, and so on and so forth. And then were they involved in writing of the articles or not? Did they review the written article and did they edit the review article? So all those aspects we have to declare in the end of every publications which we submit to a journal. And this must be approved by each author in regards to their contribution. Conflict of interest. Authors should disclose any potential conflicts of interest that could influence their research or publication. Again, we have to declare this in the end of our each submitted articles to a journal. Accurate data and results. Authors are responsible for the accuracy and integrity of their contributions and should have confidence in the contribution of their co-authors. It is utmost important to maintain the raw data, whether your experiment works or not. Maintain all your raw data, not only on a hard book, but in a folder, which can be opened by any research officer within your institution. And because it is important, especially if the work is supported by any federal government or state government funding, they have an authority to audit your work at any time. Avoid duplicate publication. Whatever you have published something in one article, don't use that in the second, don't use any portion of that in any other article. It is not allowed. Even if it's the same journal or the same publisher, the published work is not allowed to republish again, because this could be considered as a form of plagiarism and can mislead reader. Even though it was your publication, you cannot reproduce that. Sometimes people reproduce the figures from already published articles, but they have to take permission from those published authors and publisher to reproduce that and properly acknowledge underneath each figure or each of the information which you present or represent or reproduce in your own publication. Avoid the least publishable units. So submit published research in a comprehensive format rather than breaking up into smaller, less significant publications. Don't go for the quantity of the publications. Go for a quality of the publications whereby you have the information on the findings which fully support your hypothesis or the question you are raising in your paper. So don't try to break up that, oh, I can produce some of the data in this paper and other data in this paper and come up with the final conclusion later. That is not really a good practice. Timely and comprehensive publication. Publish substantial findings in a timely manner, avoiding fragmentation of research into multiple publications. Provide a full and fair description of the work undertaken and an honest assessment of the findings. All authors should review and approve the final manuscript before submission and publication, as I said earlier. If after submitting any article to a journal, if the errors are identified, the authors have a responsibility to inform the journal and submit your erratum. They call it to correct the record. So depending upon the type of errors you have made, then the journals will accept your erratum and publish it as erratum of your article. Sometimes, as you might have seen, that some data which are not found to be correct, then the authors may have to withdraw their articles after publication of their articles. And it is also published in the PubMed and other areas that the authors have withdrawn their article because of such and such and such reasons. Research any questions on that publication and responsibility of the authorship? Research misconduct. Research misconduct. The main three components of the research misconduct are the fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism. And this research misconduct is addressed through policies that guide institutions in handling allegations and imposing sanctions. These policies typically involve an inquiry to assess the allegations, potentially followed by a full investigation, and then a decision regarding sanctions. Each institution has an office of research, and within that office of research, they should have the research integrity officer who plays a key role in guiding these processes. In our case, Jennifer Baker is the Director of Research Compliance, and she makes sure that each and every researcher on our campus follows the rules and regulations and submit the required documentation. And I'm sure she must have explained that to you yesterday. So what is the definition of misconduct? Research misconduct is defined as fabrication, falsification, or plagiarism in proposing, performing, reviewing, or reporting research. Institutions have procedures for receiving and managing allegations of research misconduct, often involving a designated research integrity officer or a similar role. Anybody, somebody who is your colleague, somebody who really are watching or something, can anonymously report about any such allegations to the institution. It becomes the institution's responsibility to look into that fact, whether those are correct or those are just incorrect. Give you an example. About 12 years ago or 14 years ago, one of my PhD students submitted his PhD thesis. He was scheduled to defend on Monday, and on Friday, somebody sent an email to the university research authorities that these data is wrong. Obviously, it is our responsibility to withhold that defense on Monday and then start looking into the findings. And to make a long story short, that after very 2 or 3 days, Monday and Tuesday, the whole committee looked at all the findings, all the data lab notebooks of the PhD student and found nothing wrong. And later on, came to know that another PhD student in my own lab who was not doing very well and who was jealous of the progress of the student who was defending, submitted that allegation from a terminal in the library of our own institution at 10 o'clock. So we came to know all about it, that which terminal it was and so on and so forth. But luckily, by end of Tuesday, the committee did a very good job of checking all the data, found nothing, and then we let that student defend his thesis or PhD thesis on Thursday and Friday. And he is a very successful researcher right now working at the NIH. So there are some of those type of cases happens, which are not valid cases, which are not valid allegations, but you never know. So it is at most important for all of you to maintain your raw data in your lab notebook, whether it works or not. I always emphasize to my people here that write down whether you made a wrong calculation. That's always helpful to go back and check whether I did the right dilutions of the chemicals and substances using in my experiments and so on and so forth. So it's helpful to you also, but more importantly, it really gives you a confidence that you have all the data with you to support your findings, so that you never know who might report. Inquiry, a preliminary review typically focused on documentary evidence, is conducted to determine if a full investigation is warranted. So in our case, which I gave you an example, after that allegation came, the data notebooks were submitted first thing Monday morning, and then within one day, the committee decided we don't need a full investigation because they found all the data, because that student already published some papers in a good journals, and then all the data were found in the lab notebooks accurately. However, in some cases, it happens that there is not a supporting data in the document. So in that case, that if the inquiry suggests a reasonable basis for further investigation, then this requires a more comprehensive process, which is initiated, which involves interviewing the actual researcher, looking at all the documents, and also consulting experts in that area. So this goes a little bit longer, sometimes weeks or 2 weeks, or maybe longer in there. And if research misconduct is found, then committee has to decide the sanctions, which may be imposed with disciplinary actions. So what are the sanctions in the research misconduct? Sanctions could include the researchers who commit misconduct may be debarred from receiving federal funding for a specified period. And this is in regards to those work which is supported by NIH or other federal government. However, if the institution wants to make, then that researcher could be expelled from the institution without any degree, and it should go to their record. Termination of the grant funding. Immediately in such cases, NIH, Department of Defense, any other federal government, the grants related to misconduct may be terminated and funding may be withheld. An institution may impose additional sanctions such as suspension from certain research activities. In regards to this, NIH has a special office, and that office called Office of Research Integrity, ORI. At the NIH, you can go online and find out all the cases. They really have to declare all the cases where they have found research misconduct and what actions they have taken. Any questions on research misconduct or research conduct? If not, then the next aspect is mentoring. Mentoring is at most important. Indeed, it is required in this program, especially I had to detail that how mentoring will take place. That is why each of you have been assigned a selective mentor. And as I reminded you on Monday, that please take advantage of your mentor. Make an appointment to see him or her, even online or in person, and seek their advice, seek their guidance, and then directions. Discuss with your project and what type of coaching they provide you, what type of support they provide you. It's always helpful. It's also helpful for networking. So mentoring is at most important. Please take the full advantage of your mentor in your case. So in regards to mentor-mentee responsibilities and relationship, the mentor provides guidance and support, while the mentee actively seeks advice and takes responsibility for their development. The mentor acts as a role model and coach, sharing their experience and knowledge. The mentee is responsible for being a good listener, actively participating in the relationship, and being open to feedback. Always think about why mentor is suggesting this direction or the other direction. And if you have any question, feel free to ask that question. No question is a dumb question. It is your career, your future. We are facilitators here for your academic achievements. So take full advantage of the expertise, knowledge, and experience of your mentor. So mentor responsibility is they offer advice, insights, and encouragement to help mentees navigate their career and personal development. Mentors demonstrate positive behaviors and values, serving as a positive example for their mentees. And mentors provide constructive feedback to help mentees improve their skills and performance. Mentors can connect mentees with valuable resources, people, and opportunities within their network. Mentors should be attentive and understanding, actively listening to the mentee's concerns and needs. This is really important here. Mentors should maintain the confidentiality of the relationship, ensuring the mentee feels safe and comfortable sharing personal information. Any information which you feel comfortable to share with your mentor, which can help in your academic achievements, don't hesitate to share that. Mentors are supposed to keep it absolutely confidential. Mentors should be willing to adjust their approach and strategies based on the mentee's needs and goals. Also, mentors should maintain regular contact with their mentees to provide ongoing support and guidance. In this case, the mentors may not write to you directly. Some of them they do, but others, first mentees has to approach their mentor. And once they have made that connection, then mentors come back and remind you, let's come and meet and discuss how your progress is going. So what is mentee responsibility? Mentees should actively seek guidance and feedback from their mentor, initiating conversations and sharing their goals. Mentees should be open and honest with their mentor, sharing their challenges and aspirations. Mentees should be attentive to their mentor's advice and feedback, actively seeking to understand and implement it. And mentees are responsible for their own learning and growth, taking initiative to apply what they have learned. Mentees should treat their mentor with respect and trust, recognizing their experience and wisdom. Mentees should be committed to the mentoring relationship, attend meetings, and follow through on their goals. Mentees should proactively ask for feedback from their mentor and be open for constructive criticism. If the mentor is suggesting you anything and which you do not think it is a constructive, feel free to ask them. They explain why they are suggesting those. I always encourage my mentees to ask me any question they want, and I should be pleased to answer. Sometimes it doesn't mean that I'm always right. I may be wrong, but I would like to hear from my mentees. Mentees should respect their mentor's confidentiality and avoid sharing private information with others. So whatever you share as a mentor-mentee, it remains absolutely confidential. So key elements of a successful mentoring relationship are the clear goals and expectation. Establish those clear goals and expectation in the very beginning and ensure that both parties are on the same page and that the relationship remains focused and productive. If you have not yet met your mentor, please set up an appointment and immediately from the first meeting, discuss about your goals and what are your expectations about it. All right, so I really encourage you to do so. A strong mentoring relationship is built on mutual respect and trust, where both parties feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and concerns. Regular, open communication is essential for building a successful mentoring relationship, allowing both parties to stay informed and address any concern. Don't try to reach out to your mentor at the last minute when you have some problem or some question. Please keep in touch on a regular basis. Keep them informing your progress and success. If you are successful, we feel we are successful. So they will feel happy about hearing your success and your accomplishments. Both the mentor and mentee should be committed to the relationship and accountable for their roles and responsibilities. A successful mentoring relationship is adaptable and flexible, allowing both parties to adjust their approach based on changing needs and circumstances. So it's a win-win situation in regards to mentor-mentee's relationship. So again, I'm emphasizing, repeating myself, that please meet with your mentor as often as you can during this at least 2 months period. And in fact, the assigned mentor, you may also meet with them after completing this summer research program throughout the year in your second year and so on. Any question? Let's look into the data management, which is utmost important. I have emphasized several times that maintain all data, all raw data, actual data, how you analyze, how you perform the experiments in the lab notebook, and also somewhere in the files, which can be accessed by any institution or someplace. So we have a website here. Each of your advisors should have a place where they maintain their own data. In regards to this, it starts with writing a plan. You should be able to really show all how you developed your project and then put that into a folder. And this is following the ethics and policy compliance, and then also to make sure that all the data management plans and checklists are in place. Then performing the experiments, then you will have to really write each and every methodology. I find several times that some of the students, they feel that they have diluted certain substance or chemicals and antibodies correctly. Later on, we find out, no, it was 10 times less or 10 times more of this and that. So very easy for us to make some errors in there. So it's always helpful to you to write down in your lab notebook exactly how much you diluted and what you did and which sequence of order you have added the substances. That really helps you in performing your experiments, achieving a good data. And once you have the data, then document that completely and keep a full file with a proper naming and especially proper date. Whenever you did something, write down the date that you did this on this and this date. In my experience on various committees, then most of the integrity officers, they require dates that when it was done. All right. And if some error, just sign it in there so that it's a very clear and crisp that you are honest in your data. And then this will be very helpful. Managing data is at most important about data storage, confidentiality, and security. You can put some security badge in there so that not everyone can access to your data. Only those who are allowed to see the data, and this your advisor will advise that which folder they should put the data in. And then sharing data. Sharing data is by publications. And many times when we submit the publication, we don't submit all data. Sometimes we have some supporting files, but others we don't publish it, but we have to keep everything intact in the folder. And also it is important when you have to have copyright or licensing or submitting any patent or anything like that, and also the data citations. So data management is a crucial aspect of research, encompassing the processes involved in acquiring, storing, managing, analyzing, and sharing data. It includes several key components, such as the data acquisition, and which I explained to you that collecting data, various methods you used, and surveys, experiment, interviews, observations, all sorts of those information, you must accurately maintain the information in your folder. And documenting the research process meticulously, including details about the study design, data collection methods, data analysis procedures, and results. And this documentation is essential for reproducibility and transparency. Retention. the process of storing data safely and securely for a specified period. NIH requires that we have to keep our data for 3 years or 7 years. And then after that, they do not require to keep it. However, I keep my data for the last 15 years. All the data, the raw data and every data files are there with me in case we have to go back. And this is very helpful when I'm writing a next article to go back to my data, figures, and so on. This really is very helpful. Data ownership determines who has the legal right to access, use, and control the data. This can be complex, especially in research settings where multiple parties may be involved. Ownership issues should be clarified at the outset of the project. Before we start any project, I sit down with my mentee, with my student researchers. Okay, you will do this and this experiment, and then who will be the responsible as a owner of the data, and also who will be the first author, second author, and third author. If anybody comes in later on with a significant contribution, and we determine that as all of us sit down and determine where that person should be placed in the authorship. Analysis and interpretation of the data. This involves examining the collected data to identify patterns, trends, and meaningful insights. It is not that you have 5 replicates and one of them is not going along with your theory. Don't throw that data out. You have to find out why this particular case is totally not in line of others. So it's not a good practice. It's not allowed to throw away any data unless you have a valid reason that there was some problem in the experiments or something else. And that really tells us about the variability between the various subjects in regards to the data. So don't throw away any data unless there is a really valid reason to do that. And sharing data allows others to build upon existing research, replicate findings, and contribute to the broader scientific community. And this must be done with responsibility, considering the ethical considerations, and so on and so forth, as we discussed. Each of us, as a scientist, are responsible for our research findings and research conduct. It is utmost important. So scientist, as a responsible member of the society, acknowledges the societal impact of their work, actively participates in discussions about science and society, and prioritize ethical conduct and transparency. This includes considering the potential risks and benefits of research, engaging with the public, and ensuring that their work contributes to the betterment of society. And that is why NIH requires us not only to publish our finding, but also disseminate our finding, share with your colleagues, present in the regional, national, or international meetings. So I encourage you, after you submit your manuscript for publication, try to present in one of the scientific society, somewhere in the regionally or nationally. So what are the responsibilities as a scientist? Consideration of societal impact. Scientists should proactively consider the potential consequences of their research, including both positive and negative impacts. This includes assessing the potential risk and ethical implications of their work, such as in the case of dual-use research, which have both beneficial and harmful applications. Public engagement and communications. And as I said, that you have a responsibility to share your findings, present your work, and share with your colleagues so that they know what is going on. Ethical conduct and integrity. Scientists must adhere to all ethical guidelines for research and conduct themselves with integrity. This includes avoiding conflict of interest, ensuring the responsible use of resources, and upholding the principles of scientific honesty and fairness. And as I said, that be involved in societal discussions of your findings. Be involved, contribute to the public good. So we should strive to conduct research that benefits society as a whole. That is why we are working on a translational research, that whatever we are doing will help in the better management of patients in the form of diagnosis or in the treatment or developing a better treatment approaches. Good laboratory practice. Components of the good laboratory practice are you have to have a various components, such as one should we have a proper training of each and every experiment you do. One should have study protocols already done very well. You should have the standard operating procedures. You should have some quality assurances in there. You should have the validated equipment and facilities, and then you should have some sort of arrangements for traceability and archiving, so that you can trace and also look at where it is archived, and the comprehensive documentations. All these are important aspects of the good laboratory practices. And then this is GLP is a quality system that ensures non-clinical studies are planned, performed, monitored, recorded, archived, and reported accurately and consistently. It is a set of standardized procedures and guidelines designed to produce reproducible and verifiable results. And GLP focuses on data integrity and reliability, crucial for regulatory submissions and scientific research. So these are the various aspects of GLP: standardized procedures, quality control, data integrity, reproducibility, and regulatory compliance. Before we apply our basic research or preclinical findings to a human trials, then these aspects are extremely important before FDA accepts and give us permission for any new drug or any new device or any new procedures. So it goes through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trial before it becomes it is approved for the human use. So IND or any other new drug before we do in human, that GLP aspect is extremely important and FDA requires that. So these are the various principles of GLP. I will not really repeat them, but as I mentioned earlier, that you have to have a standard operating procedure properly written. You have to have evidence of qualified personnel. You have to have evidence of the adequate facilities. You have to have a proper documentation. You have to have a data validation, and also it should be ready for audits and inspection. So what are the benefits of GLP? It really enhances the data quality. It reduces errors. And also, if you have all those documentation with you, it really results into a faster approval by any regulatory authorities. And it improves the scientific rigor. And also, in the long run, it reduces cost of doing any research. So, any questions so far? Other aspects of RCR, which I'm not touching upon, but Dr. David Sanchez will talk about biosafety and chemical safety, labels and requirements. He'll be talking about BSL-1, BSL-2, BSL-3, and so on and so forth. And so he has a lecture that is arranged soon sometimes. And regarding the human research, as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Redwan will be talking to you. He's a member of our IRB here at Western U. And then Dr. Finos Thankam will be speaking on the ICUC, animal welfare. And then Jennifer Baker already gave you the lecture yesterday, and all of you have already performed the city training. Any questions? So I hope this was a quick overview on the responsible conduct of research. You will have all these slides available. As Natalie mentioned, that they will be posted on our website, and as well as a recording of the lecture. And then we will continue discussing various other aspects as required in our coursework regarding the responsible conduct of research. Whenever you have any question out of this lecture, you can feel free to write to me or talk to me. All right? If there is no other question, I thank you for your attention and wish you all the best for the rest of the day. Again, emphasizing that please contact your mentor, remain in touch, take advantage. and also start working in the lab so that you can make progress. I hope, as I said, you are the elite group of this R25 program, and I've been told that I'm the only one funded this year nationally under this program by NIAID. So that gives me some pressure of showing much better progress. So I'm requesting your help to support me to do a good research work and also have a full paper ready so that we can show to the NIH that, yes, indeed, we have a highly accomplished students and they learn a lot on this program. Once again, thank you very much for your support and for your confidence in our program, and look forward to your accomplishments or any questions you might have in the future for me. Have a blessed day. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.